Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Healthy Aging Nutrition program. This is our last session, and today Kennedy and I are talking about nutrition and brain health. So we're going to be talking all about ways that you can use nutrition to maximize your cognitive health as you get older, because we know that starts to decline a little bit and you experience some memory loss. But we're going to be talking about that, and as well as some food safety and a little bit of mindful eating at the end of today's session. So I hope you enjoy.
This week's objectives are recall which facts promote brain health, be able to understand why food safety is a concern for older adults, and identify two differences between emotional and physical hunger.
So our cognitive function is going to naturally decline as we get older. You may know some people already, or maybe yourself, have been diagnosed with either Alzheimer's disease or dementia, which is the main cause of Alzheimer's disease. A lot of times this can affect nutrition because it can affect the way that you prepare meals. It can also impact how you eat as far as chewing and swallowing. If you lose some of that ability to remember how to do it, that can severely impact your nutrition. So we want to make sure that we're being proactive about how we can protect our cognitive health so we can prevent some of that as much as possible. Also, as we get older, we experience some changes in our taste buds. So things tend to taste a little bit differently, and that can impact a little bit on how we perceive different taste. It also affects our appetite. And when our appetite is affected or our memory is impacting all of these different things, that can significantly increase our risk for malnutrition. And we definitely want to avoid that.
So here is an infographic to help us understand cognitive decline, memory loss, the difference between memory loss, dementia, and Alzheimer's. Memory loss is a normal part of aging. As Sarah Kelly said, as we get older, we lose a little bit of our cognitive function. Now, dementia and Alzheimer's are not a normal part of aging. I know some people do think this, but that is not true. Dementia is a serious loss of cognitive ability. It's not a specific disease, but a group of conditions characterized by the impairment of at least two brain functions. Alzheimer's is a prime cause of dementia, and it impairs the functions of the neurons in the brain, and the brain cells deteriorate and eventually die and destroy important mental functions. Alzheimer's is much more severe than dementia. A really good description is dementia is forgetting your keys, and Alzheimer's is for forgetting how to use them.
So we know that the prevalence of Alzheimer's disease increases as we get older, but I think this slide is very good to show you just a little bit more of like how much that increase is. So for people over the age of 60, there's about 1% of Alzheimer's, which is that, again, that serious memory loss of forgetting how to use your keys when you go to start your car. And then once the age gets over 85, there's about 40% of people have Alzheimer's disease. So it's a big jump, and definitely something that can be prevented to a little bit with nutrition, but also some that just kind of occurs with aging.
So in the next part of this PowerPoint, we're going to talk about some of the important fats that we need to include in our diet to support our brain health.
So the fats you want to focus on for cognitive health are number one going to be your omega-3 fatty acids. We talked a little bit about these when we did our fat session, but these are going to be found in your oily fish, such as your salmon, your sardines, even tuna. So pretty much any type of oily fish, as well as those liquid oils. So that canola oil is high in omega-3s, as well as many nuts and seeds, such as walnuts, pumpkin seeds, chia seeds, and sunflower seeds. And then the second thing you want to focus on with fats is those unsaturated fats. So the unsaturated fats are the healthy fats, whereas the saturated fats are the more unhealthy fats. So the unsaturated fats are going to be those more found in liquid forms, such as your liquid oils like olive oil, avocados, or many other nuts and seeds. And these fats work in your brain as an antioxidant effect, so they clear out all of the different damaged oxidative stress that your brain is under throughout the day and throughout your life. And so the more that you include of these fats in your diet, the better able your brain is to help clean out some of that oxidative stress and make it better and easier for you to remember things.
So here are a few ways to decrease your risk for cognitive decline. You can eat a diet low in sodium. We'll actually talk about one of these diets later in this PowerPoint. It's called the DASH diet. You can monitor your carbohydrate intake. Don't eat too many carbohydrates and watch which type of carbohydrate you're eating. An interesting fact actually is that people who are age 70 and older who eat carbohydrate, very high carbohydrate diets, are 4 times more likely to have cognitive impairment. You can limit saturated fat in your diet. Saturated fat and Alzheimer's disease and dementia are positively associated. Instead, you can include some of those good fats that Sarah was just talking about, which is right there. Increase your unsaturated fats and your omega-3 fatty acids. And finally, you can maintain a healthy weight. Obesity actually increases the risk of Alzheimer's disease and dementia, and it increases the rate of cognitive decline.
So some eating patterns that you can follow if you're looking for more of a structured form are the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet. And we don't really like to use the term diet in nutrition, so that's why I put eating patterns, because it's not really a diet. It's more of a way of life or a lifestyle of eating, if you will. But the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet, which stands for dietary approaches to stop hypertension or high blood pressure, have been studied extensively by nutritionists and have been proven to be very effective in preventing disease and actually promoting cognitive benefits. So the Mediterranean diet focuses on a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables, a lot of fish, olive oil, or any other type of oils that are liquid, and it mainly limits the red meat or that saturated fat in the diet. And then the DASH diet is one that was developed, again, to help to stop hypertension or high blood pressure. And it focuses on low-fat dairy, so again, decreasing that amount of saturated fat, lots of fresh fruits and vegetables, and it significantly limits sodium. So it decreases the amount of salt that you're getting in your diet and helps to improve your heart health. So these can both be combined or they can be followed separately. But if you're looking for more of a structured plan, then these are going to be some good starting points for you.
The sole fuel source for our brains is glucose. So we need to make sure that we're getting enough carbohydrates in our diet. We recommend just about 45% of our daily calories to be carbohydrates, and that we're getting consistent source of carbohydrates. Sometimes as we get older, we can forget to eat. We can forget to eat certain food groups. We can exclude them entirely. So we need to make sure that we're getting enough carbohydrates as we get older and that we're getting the right amount.
Exactly. And also, we want to make sure we're getting the foods, that wide variety of foods, so that we can include all of the nutrients that we need. So again, those antioxidants are going to be found in many fruits and vegetables, as well as those fats, where your brain can use those to help kind of clean out and recover. So your memory will be better. You'll be better able to do activities of your daily life. And then just anytime you eat fruits and vegetables, you're a lot of times going to get many of these other vitamins and minerals that you need, such as vitamin C, vitamin E, the B vitamins, and vitamin D. And you can also get these not just through fruits and vegetables, but a lot of foods have been fortified with these nutrients. So when you're at the grocery store, looking on those labels and making sure that you're buying milk with added vitamin D and that type of thing, and you can make sure you cover your bases, so to speak, and get all of those nutrients, which can really help your cognitive health.
So I know we've talked about vitamin B12 before, but we're just going to go over it one more time because it is so important. It plays an important role in fat metabolism, so helps you digest those healthy fats that Sarah was talking about. It is also involved in energy production in the body, so it helps you maintain an energy balance. It helps you from being fatigued and tired. As we get older, we lose our ability to absorb vitamin B12, so vitamin B12 deficiency becomes a lot more common. And so vitamin B12 is really only found in animal products like fish, meat, poultry, milk, and eggs. And so we really cannot stress enough that as you get older, you need to make sure that you're including those foods in your diet and getting plenty of them so that you do not become deficient in vitamin B12.
Another thing we want to mention is metabolism. So your metabolism is going to slow down a little bit during aging, and this is perfectly normal, and it happens because your body is not needing to function at a high level as it was when you were younger or you're working or whatever. So because of that, you automatically will need fewer calories the older you get. There's like a natural, it's very gradual. Your metabolism will slow down gradually, but then your calorie intake should also decrease gradually. So you don't want to do any drastic decreases in calories because we obviously don't want to lose a lot of weight or something and increase your risk for malnutrition. But you do kind of want to be mindful of that. Yes, your metabolism does slow down the older you get. And some things that can increase your metabolism if you're still looking to optimize that function is, again, vitamin B12 can actually increase your energy, provide you with that consistent energy that you can use throughout the day. So making sure you're not deficient in that is one thing that you can do to be proactive about your cognitive health. Another thing is making sure that you're getting that consistent energy intake. And we can't stress that enough, but it's very important to make sure you're getting enough calories and enough nutrients that you need for you. And so the way that you can do that is to look at some of those diets, follow your hunger cues. And we're going to be talking a little bit about mindful eating later in today's session, but it's important to eat, and it's important to eat enough, but not too much.
In this picture, we have some examples of foods that are really good for your brain. As you can see, we've got some of those omega-3s, those good fatty acids in that salmon, the avocado, the oil, the nuts. We have some antioxidants. We have blueberries. We have apricots, and we have tomatoes, and we have eggs too, which are a good source of vitamin B12, which we were just talking about.
And then just a reminder, don't forget about water. Hydration is super important the older we get because our thirst instinct, again, declines. And so we want to make sure that we're drinking enough water throughout today, setting reminders if you need to. And also recognizing that it doesn't just have to be water to get your hydration. You can become more hydrated by eating more soup or drinking tea or whatever, or drinking some juice or something, anything to get more fluids is going to be good to make sure you're getting enough hydration, because your brain is going to uses a lot of water, and so the more hydrated you are, the better your memory is going to be, and the better you will be able to function.
In the next section of this PowerPoint, we are going to talk about food safety and why it is so important for older adults.
So food safety, as we get older, our immunity is going to decline. So our ability to fight off infections or to recover from illness is actually going to decrease. So because of that, we've become a little bit more susceptible to different diseases or becoming sick, as well as developing a foodborne illness. And a foodborne illness, Kennedy is going to talk about on the next slide, but our risk for that increases as we get older when we have those blunted senses that we talked about in the first session. We may not be able to smell things as well, so we might eat spoiled food, or we may not be able to detect when something is not as fresh as it once was. And so we're going to share with you some practical tips of what you can do to help protect yourself, protect your immunity, and protect yourself from foodborne illness.
So what is a foodborne illness? Foodborne illness is when you get sick from eating spoiled or infected food. And this is, the sickness that most people associate with having food poisoning. The symptoms range from mild to severe. So, you might just get some vomit and some diarrhea, but it can also be severe. You have to realize that foodborne illnesses can cause death. They are very serious, and it's not something to just be taken lightly. Symptoms can last a few hours to several days. It can make you really sick, and the best way to prevent yourself from getting a foodborne illness is to practice prevention. The best way to protect yourself is prevention. And these are things like washing your hands before you cook, properly handling raw animal products, or making sure that you use clean utensils, cookware, and plates when you're cooking.
So another thing that goes along with the foodborne illness is also making sure that your food is not exposed to a dangerous temperature zone where bacteria can grow very quickly. And in nutrition and in food service, our temperature danger zone is between 41 degrees Fahrenheit and 135 degrees Fahrenheit. So anytime that food, especially like things like raw meats or cheeses that is very susceptible to bacteria, is sitting in that temperature danger zone for an extended amount of time, the chances that bacteria overgrowth are going to occur become higher and higher the longer that food is out. So it's important to be aware of how long things are out of your refrigerator or are not cooked as high as they should be or as hot as they should be to help prevent some of that foodborne illness.
We cannot talk about foodborne illness without talking about the proper way to thaw meat. Many people thaw meat on their counter and do not think this is an issue, but this is actually really, really bad. This puts your food in the temperature danger zone in that 41 to 135 degrees, that range, and that puts it at risk for bacteria growing on it and making you sick. The proper way to thaw meat is in your refrigerator, or if you're in a pinch, you forgot to defrost it in the microwave. But really the best thing is to plan your meals out, to prepare and to thaw your meat in the refrigerator, or just never put it in the freezer. But if you do that, make sure that you don't let it sit in the refrigerator too long after you bring it home from the grocery store.
And some more tips for being food safe in the kitchen are to check your cans. Cans can sometimes be a good source, or I guess I shouldn't say good, but can be a common source of foodborne illness if they have been damaged or punctured in any way. So it's important to, when you're reaching in your cupboard and you pull out a can, make sure that it's completely closed. There's no holes, openings in it. Make sure that it's not bulging in anywhere where it's been bent or dented from the store, because a lot of times if that can has been misused in any way, then it might have some more bacteria or bacteria growth in it that you may not even know about if you open it up. So it's important to check those cans. Also looking for that used by date. There are many different dates on things, but general rule of thumb, if you look for used by dates, and if it's before the used by date, you're good to go, generally. Also, you want to look for those off odors. So if it smells weird, it probably is weird, and it's probably not safe to eat. So if your sense of smell is starting to go, then it might be useful or helpful to get somebody else, maybe a grandchild or anyone else that's coming in your house, to say, hey, smell this, what do you think? Or, hey, check my cans. Do you think it looks safe? Do you think this is safe to eat? Because again, as our sense of sight and our sense of smell begins to go, that's where we run into issues with older adults getting foodborne illness, because they didn't know that it was bad. The last thing on here is we want to prevent cross-contamination. And that's a big string of words, but basically what that means is we don't want to contaminate foods that we're cooking with foods that we're not cooking. So a good example of this would be you don't want to mix raw meats with your vegetables. If you're making a salad like this lady is doing, you wouldn't want to also be working on hamburger meat on the same cutting board, because that's where the bacteria and the meat that hasn't been cooked yet can get on your raw veggies and cause issues. So it's important to separate your cutting boards, making sure you're washing your hands in between, and you're cooking everything to the proper temperature.
So another way to prevent foodborne illness for older adults is to avoid some foods that are usually that tend to cause foodborne illness. These are deli meats, soft cheeses, undercooked eggs, and oysters.
All right, now the last section of today's session is a little bit about mindful eating. We're just going to give you a quick intro, kind of overview of what is mindful eating and how you can use some of these practices in your daily life. So we're going to talk a little bit about mood and how mood can affect your eating and what you can do to recognize how you can eat more mindfully.
So first we're going to talk about emotional hunger and physical hunger. Emotional hunger is that hunger that starts suddenly. It comes on all of a sudden, you're hungry out of the blue. It's really felt mostly in your head or on the surface of your thoughts. Your thoughts might be racing. You might be thinking about food. You can't get it out of your head. Like I said, it's a short craving. It tends to be incessant. You become fixated on a specific food, taste, or texture. It's preventing you from doing other things. It can be hard to satisfy. You know, you think about just eating and eating and eating and not feeling full, and it often leads to eating until you're uncomfortably full. And it may trigger feelings of guilt, self-loathing, regret, shame. You wish you hadn't eaten, all that stuff. But physical hunger starts gradually. It comes on. It is felt in your stomach. That's when your stomach is growling. It's that growling pain that tends to come in waves. You're going to be open to many options, you know, not just that chocolate bar or that popcorn, but will be open to anything to, you know, satisfy that hunger, even things that might seem less palatable. It's, you know, easy to satisfy with a normal amount of food, a plate of food, and it doesn't make you feel bad about yourself. You feel better, you feel full, you've satisfied that physical hunger feeling.
So some triggers to emotional eating are going to be things like loneliness, nostalgia, stress, boredom. Sometimes even external cues can cause us to emotionally eat. If we see other people eating, or we have some kind of connection with the food that people are eating, even if we're not hungry, we might be tempted to eat more than we should or more than our body needs at that point of time. So it's important to recognize what triggers emotional eating for you, because once you know what your triggers are, you're better able to combat it and to combat some of those cravings, because cravings can be very intense. And if I feel like everyone has probably experienced some cravings in their lifetime, but it can be hard to say no to a craving. But if you know that stress causes you to eat more food or to binge on a certain snack food that you really like, then you can know that when I get stressed, I need to find some way else to de-stress instead of eating food. And so when you do get stressed and you do start to feel those cravings, or you're feeling that loneliness come on, or you're just bored, you can learn to recognize that and recognize, okay, I'm not actually hungry because I just ate not too long ago, but what else can I do to fill this void or to fill that loneliness that I'm experiencing, or how can I get rid of this stress instead of turning to food? And so that's when you can turn to different activities. You know, what are some ways that you have found that work for you? And this is going to be very individualized. There's no one size fits all. This is how you combat cravings kind of thing. But we just want you to start learning to recognize when you tend to emotional eating, if you do, and you may not. and that's fine too, that's great. But if you are someone who struggles with cravings or has experienced them and just doesn't know what to do, learning to recognize these triggers and finding other ways to fill those voids that are not food is going to be very helpful, I think, for you.
These are a few key practices that are part of mindful eating that you might want to implement in your own life. So first of all, listen to your internal cues. Recognize when you're hungry and eat when you are physically hungry. When you eat, when you are physically hungry, your body will learn to trust you. Your hunger will not get out of control. Really focus on that physical hunger versus, somebody else is eating, so you're going to eat, or you see a bag of chips in the store and you're just going to eat it even though you're not really hungry. Really focus on how you feel inside versus what is going on outside. Plan ahead, plan meals, and pack your food in advance. So don't let your hunger get out of control. Sometimes when your hunger gets out of control, that's when you end up, binge eating those foods because it's just gotten out of hand. Also, when you plan meals, you can look at all the foods, what you're eating every day, and you might notice that there's foods that you're eating every single day. If you're eating broccoli every single day, that's great, but you might want to mix it up with another vegetable. So that's just another perk of planning your meals. And finally, focus on the quality of the food. Aim for more nutrient-dense foods. Those will keep you full longer, more satisfied. When you just eat that processed food and those sugars and all that salt, it really doesn't keep you full or satisfied for that much longer, and then you end up going back for more. And the goal with eating, obviously, is to stay full for a while and kind of have those regular meal and snack times and not just be eating all day long.
Exactly. And Kennedy mentioned that listening to those internal hunger cues, and this is a very helpful handout if you are interested in this at all, in learning to recognize when you are hungry, because sometimes it can be confusing because we have so many of those external cues, or sometimes we're just busy, or sometimes we're busy and we forget to eat, or busy so we eat whenever we can. But if you can just take a break and pause and just ask yourself, how hungry am I? And so normally if we were in a class, I would ask you to share what is your current hunger level based on this list. But as you're online, I'm just going to kind of go through and explain it. Basically, if you were at a 1, you are super hungry. You're so hungry, you're actually physically nauseous or physically ill, or because you're so hungry. And then it kind of goes down from there. Just 3 is okay, I'm hungry and my stomach is growling. 4 is yeah, I could eat, but my stomach feels slightly empty. And then as we get down further, you learn to recognize that maybe you're not as ready for a meal as you thought. You might be mildly full, but you're just not satisfied, or maybe you are satisfied, but you feel like you could eat some more or something like that. So just take a look at this. Yeah, the further you go down, you get a little more stuff, at Thanksgiving Day full. You can take a look at this, and maybe it's something helpful if you are someone who struggles with recognizing your internal hunger and when you are hungry versus when you're full. And I think this could be very helpful for you.
Thank you for joining us for the final week of our Healthy Aging Nutrition Education program. We hope that you've learned some practical knowledge you can use in your own life, and that you've enjoyed this as much as we have.
Yeah, thank you. And if you ever need to reach us, you should have our emails, and we are happy to answer any questions or comments that you have. So thank you guys, and have a great day.